Hello and welcome, Lanterns. I'm Joe. Here's my co-host Dan.
Hello and greetings.
We just got finished reviewing the Green Lantern First Flight animated movie. The animation in this movie and artwork is really good. The coloring is really good. And the plot moves at breakneck speed. It's an hour and 14 minutes long, so it's a relatively short film. But there's minor lore issues, such as the Green Ring killing in this film when you can't actually kill with the ring. At least not at first. It's not till the War of the Sinestro Corps that the characters can kill with the green power rings. That said, the characters are on point. The plot is good. Everybody knows this film who likes DC. I have a soft spot for the film due to it being what got me first into Green Lantern because of you.
Yes, here it is. I got it. I saw it. I showed our older brother. He loved it. And then we both ganged up on Joe here.
And got me to watch it, yeah. That said, the movie works with the general hero's journey type of story, with how getting the ring after Abinsur's death, they have to investigate into the capture of the yellow energy, where they first go after Kutch on one criminal planet. That kind of goes so-so. Sinestro is revealed to be kind of cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And the Lanterns then end up having the problem that Sinestro kind of turns Kutch into a vegetable, killing him during the interrogation process. And the Guardians stupidly decide to overlook this, forgetting for a moment that they have a no-kill rule, and that the punishment is imprisonment for life if you do. Sinestro then decides to lead the gang. He's apparently in league with the one pirate guy, and he then... There's a lot of hijinks that ensue as the characters have to try to make their way to him. He gets away, they chase after his ship, Hal gets on the ship, and Sinestro kills the guy. And then Sinestro reanimates the body in a necromantic scene reminiscent of some Norse myths. Just saying. Flies off to Quard to collect his little toy. And after he collects his precious, he turns on the Green Lantern, slaughtering hundreds of them and destroying the battery before he is defeated himself, after Hal absorbs the energy of the battery into himself in order to engage him in battle. Then mid-battle restores the energy and still defeats Sinestro. And then the yellow one, is destroyed by Kilowog. And everybody lives happily ever after, cheering Hal's name forever. And Hal ends up flying off to Earth. At least that's the case in this universe, I guess. The movie is quite good, although I do have two problems with the film. We don't know Hal Jordan in this film. They do precious little to get you acquainted with the character. You don't really know the character. Now, I love the live action movie and think that it and this movie could stand to learn lessons from each other. The lack of connection to Martin Jordan, the lack of character arc for Hal, and the lack of, screen time for Carol Ferris, easily one of the best characters in Green Lantern lore, is sorely lacking from this film. And it harms this film tremendously. Yeah, I know everybody loves it. I love it. It's the third best DC animated film. But I still would have liked to see Carol. They should have had her brought into the film at some point, rather than just having her in the prologue. She's integral. I still would have liked to have seen an arc for Hal regarding his dad and, his fear. And it's just, there are problems there. I understand they didn't want to make it too long, but maybe an extra 20 minutes could have helped. But they did well enough with what they had, I guess. But these are the reasons why this movie is not in the top 2 best Green Lantern, not Green Lantern, but DC animated universe films. That said, I wish they had actually taken this movie and gotten into making a set of sequels. Maybe they should have gone with the War of the Supermen or whatever, or Reign of the Supermen, and had that lead into the destruction of Coast City, then Emerald Twilight, followed by a movie involving Kyle Rayner, before moving on to a Green Lantern Rebirth film, and then a War of the Sinestro Corps, part 1 and part 2, like they were planning. They were actually going to do part 1 and part 2, and just jump to the whole War of the Sinestro Corps, which is fine, I guess. And then they could have leapfrogged from that to a, I guess, War of Light story. But they didn't, and this is a standalone, which is fine. I just wish there were sequels, because the follow-up stories are really good in the comics. Especially that Jeff Jones run. At least until that last arc with Volthorum, which was just... And the whole Corona bit, which had massive, massive problems. Although it was a good storyline for the most part, but like... Anyways, what are your thoughts on this movie?
I really enjoyed this, and this is what made me fall in love with Green Lantern. And one thing that many might not notice is that we see that Hal is a very competent detective. He's good at reading people.
I like that he takes out Boudica when she has the ring and he doesn't, showing how resourceful and cunning Hal can be. It's truly a tribute to Hal, although there are some minor issues. And let's rate this film. I'm gonna... Well, you know what? You go first.
Despite the legitimate quibbles that you have, which I agree with, especially the origin of Hal, I'm inclined to bring this up to a 4.
Ah, that's too much. It's not a perfect film.
I know, but it's a very enjoyable film that...
But it's not a 4. This is so far from being a 4. I have to question what's wrong with you.
And I have to question what's wrong with you.
From 0 to 4, I have to say this is at most a 3, maybe a 3.1, but I'm going to say it's a 2.3, because the problem is the lack of character arcs. The lack of characters in this film, such as Carol Ferris. The lack of support cast, really. All we have is Kilowog. Chip gets a few lines. Why not give them a bit more time on screen? The fact that we actually understand Sinestro more as a character. He's almost more the main character than Hal. Hal's fears, his insecurities, it doesn't feel as triumphant as it should be. I might even argue that if this were a Kyle Rayner film, we'd at least get to see a bit of his insecurities. But because this is a Hal Jordan movie, we don't see that. And that is integral for him to truly triumph over adversity. The hero's journey is also an internal battle. There is no internal battle for Hal. He's the same at the end that he is at the beginning.
When you put it that way, I suppose I could lower it to 3.5, and that's the lowest I could go.
All right, fine. But the animation and art is clearly perfect in this film. This is the best art and animation of DC has ever been. And it probably ever will be. It's perfect. And there's almost nothing to critique about it. The voice acting is great and perfect. But it's just some of the character decisions, I do think... I'm not even asking for the live action film. I'm just asking for at least one scene as a reference to Martin Jordan. And then one scene as Hal has shown his fears and overcomes them at the end. That's all I'm asking for. And maybe just a reference to the jacket, as it is the equivalent of the Martha Wayne pearls with Hal. And yet, nothing. We're not attached to Hal, because we don't know Hal. And that's a major problem, I think. I love this film. I watch it about 5, 6 times a year, every year, but I still have a few minor problems with it. But I don't think I should be whining too much, as this is a monumental movie, and one day I'm going to show it to my kids. This is a near perfect film. It's perfect for kids. It's
Perfect for a family movie night.
yeah, and there's very little to add, I think, here. Next time, I guess we'll be probably discussing something like Batman, Superman, Public Enemy, which is probably the second best of the animated films of DC. But if you enjoyed this film, do remember to smash that like and that subscribe button, as though you were Hal smashing Sinestro's little battery to pieces.